The scent of sweat and damp fabric clung to the locker room air as I pulled off my jersey, muscles aching from the evening's practice. Laughter and chatter filled the space, but my focus drifted to Liam, my best friend since childhood, my brother in everything but blood. He sat on the bench beside me, running a towel through his dark hair, his expression unreadable. "Man, that was brutal," I said, nudging him with my elbow. He gave a weak chuckle, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, coach is really pushing us." Something was off. Normally, Liam would be the one cracking jokes, roasting our teammates, flashing that signature grin of his. Instead, he seemed distant, preoccupied. I didn't press. If Liam had something on his mind, he'd spill when he was ready. That's how it had always been. The team slowly filed out, leaving only the two of us. I noticed how Liam avoided looking at me as he unzipped his bag, his fingers gripping the fabric a little too tightly. "You good?" I asked, frowning. "Yeah, just tired." A lie. I knew it instantly. But before I could call him out, he finally turned to face me, eyes flickering with hesitation. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, voice quieter than usual. The way he said it made my stomach tighten. The air between us shifted, an unspoken weight settling in the silence. I forced a smirk, trying to lighten whatever tension was creeping in. "Sounds serious. You're not dying, are you?" Liam exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "Not exactly, but it might feel like it." The hairs on my neck stood up. "Dude, you're acting weird. What's going on?" He hesitated, his jaw tightening as if battling with himself. "Not here," he murmured, glancing at the locker room door. "Let's go for a walk." That's when I knew. This wasn't just some random confession about a bad grade or a fight with his parents. This was different. A storm of unease stirred inside me, but I nodded, grabbing my duffel bag. "All right," I said, pushing down the strange dread creeping into my chest. "Let's go." As we stepped out into the cool night air, my mind raced with possibilities. Whatever Liam was about to tell me, I had a gut feeling that things would never be the same after. And for the first time in our friendship, I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear the truth. The air outside was crisp, filled with the distant hum of traffic and the rhythmic chirping of crickets. Liam walked beside me, hands stuffed in his jacket pockets, his steps slower than usual. The tension between us thickened with every second of silence. We stopped at the park near our high school, a place we'd come to since we were kids. First for playground tag, then for late-night talks about life, college, and everything in between. But tonight felt different. He wasn't cracking jokes or shoving my shoulder like usual. "Liam," I said, my patience thinning. "Just say it." He took a breath, looking down at his sneakers. "I need you to promise me something first." I frowned. "Promise you what?" "That you won't freak out." "That," he exhaled sharply. "That you won't hate me." A cold sensation curled in my stomach. "Dude, what are you talking about?" Liam lifted his gaze, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Real, bone-deep fear. My pulse quickened. "I like someone," he finally said. Relief washed over me so fast I almost laughed. "That's it? You had me thinking this was some life-or-death thing." "It is," he muttered. I paused. Something about his tone sent my mind racing. "Liam," I said cautiously, "who is it?" He hesitated, just for a second, but in that moment, everything changed. Because I saw it. In his eyes, in the way his breath hitched, in the way he looked at me like he was bracing for impact. And then, barely above a whisper, he said, "You." The world tilted. I let out a sharp laugh, instinctively brushing it off. "Very funny, man. You had me for a second. I'm not joking." The words hit me harder than any punch I'd ever taken. I took a step back, suddenly hyper-aware of every moment we'd ever shared. Every touch, every glance, every late-night conversation that I had never thought twice about. "You're messing with me," I said, my voice uneven. Liam shook his head. "I've felt this way for years. I didn't know how to tell you. And I knew this would ruin everything. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The guy I'd trusted with everything, who knew all my secrets, who had always been my brother, had been hiding this? Years. I repeated, my voice barely audible. Yeah, he said, voice raw. Years. A part of me wanted to say something, to fix the suffocating silence that had wedged itself between us. But I couldn't, because the truth was, I didn't know how I felt. So I did the only thing I could. I turned and walked away. Liam didn't stop me, and I didn't look back. For the first time in years, Liam and I weren't speaking. I avoided him at school, skipped our usual gym sessions, and ignored his texts. Every time I saw him in the hallway, a strange knot twisted in my stomach. He never tried to stop me. Maybe he knew I needed space. Maybe he was afraid of what I'd say if he pushed. I told myself I wasn't angry. But then why did I feel like I'd been punched in the chest every time I thought about his confession? It should have been simple. My best friend liked me. That was it. But it wasn't. It was years of moments that suddenly felt different. It was late-night talks that I replayed in my head with new meaning. It was the way he looked at me, and the fact that I had never noticed. Or maybe I had. And I just didn't want to admit it. Days passed. Then a week. Then two. The silence between us grew heavier, stretching into something unspoken but impossible to ignore. Liam had changed. He wasn't laughing with the guys like before. He wasn't staying after practice. He looked tired, like the weight of his secret, of my reaction, was crushing him. One afternoon, I found him alone at the back of the school, sitting on the old bleachers. His head was down, elbows on his knees, lost in thought. I hesitated. Then, before I could overthink it, I sat down beside him. He didn't look up. We sat in silence, the weight of the past 2 weeks pressing between us. Finally, I let out a slow breath. I shouldn't have walked away. Liam stiffened slightly, but still didn't meet my eyes. You needed time. I get it. I ran a hand through my hair. I didn't know how to react. Yeah, his voice was quiet. I figured. I swallowed hard. Why didn't you ever tell me before? He let out a soft, humorless laugh. Because I knew this would happen. I looked at him then, really looked at him. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched into fists like he was bracing himself for more rejection. And for the first time, I realized something. I had hurt him. Not because I didn't feel the same way, but because I had made him feel like his truth was too much for me to handle. Liam, I started, but he shook his head. It's okay, he said, standing up. I don't expect anything from you. His words felt final, like he was giving up. And suddenly, the thought of losing him, of things never being the same, terrified me more than his confession ever had. So before I could stop myself, I grabbed his wrist. Liam, wait. He turned, surprised. And in that moment, I knew. I wasn't ready to lose him. Not like this. Liam froze, his wrist still in my grip. His eyes met mine, uncertainty flickering beneath the exhaustion. For the first time since his confession, I saw something else too. Hope. I let go, swallowing hard. I don't want things to be like this. He let out a bitter chuckle, rubbing his temple. Neither do I, but I don't know how to fix it. Neither did I. But I knew one thing. I missed him. The silence, the distance, the way things had unraveled between us. It felt wrong. More wrong than his confession ever had. I exhaled sharply. I've been thinking a lot. About us. About everything. Liam's posture stiffened, like he was preparing for the worst. And I hesitated. My heart hammered against my ribs. And I don't think I ever let myself consider it. He blinked, his breath hitching. Consider what? I ran a hand through my hair, searching for the right words. That maybe this isn't as crazy as I made it seem. That maybe I pushed you away because I was scared of what it meant. Liam's lips parted slightly, shock flashing across his face. I pushed forward before I lost my nerve. You're my best friend, and I know that's never gonna change. But I can't pretend that I don't feel something. Maybe I don't fully understand it yet, but I don't want to lose you over this. His shoulders sagged slightly, like the weight of weeks of silence was finally lifting. So, what are you saying? I let out a shaky breath. I'm saying that maybe I need to stop running from something just because it scares me. Liam studied me, searching my face for any trace of hesitation. Are you sure? I don't want you to feel like. I wouldn't be saying this if I wasn't sure. My voice was firm now, steadier than I felt. I want to figure this out. With you. A beat of silence. Then slowly, a smile crept onto Liam's lips. It wasn't his usual cocky smirk, nor was it the guarded, hesitant expression he'd worn since that night in the locker room. It was something real, something hopeful. Okay, he said softly. The tension between us shifted, no longer something sharp and painful, but something new, uncharted. And for the first time since his confession, I didn't feel overwhelmed. I didn't feel lost. I just felt right. As we sat there, side by side, a strange sense of peace settled over me. Maybe I didn't have all the answers. Maybe this would take time. But for the first time in weeks, I wasn't afraid of the truth. I met Liam's gaze, a small smile tugging at my lips. Okay, I echoed. And just like that, everything changed.